soon as y'all get, I can. Okay.
Yeah. Just lower the Alright.
No Juan Diego.
Rolling call. No. There will be a rolling call this year.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
You will see.
Part 1 is framework. The rule of the ballot is to challenge heteronormative structures that pervade society and provide a safe space for transgender adolescents. Elias in 3. Whether heterosexuality schools are maintained by social customs and promotion of the heterosexual society views queer sexuality as deviant. Heteronormativity pervades the curriculum. Besides the hegemonic hold of schools have regarded heterosexual ballot school culture maintains hierarchical, homophobic prejudice. What is lacking is attention sexuality school would be an ideal site to interrogate. Hegemony upon which heterosexism rests not much being done to disrupt the way schooling is perpetuated. Hierarchies. Education's right to challenge heterosexism and advocating for trans policy and inclusive policies is key to creating safe spaces in schools, empowers youth, male, and Stafford in 3. PFLAG suggests that several ways in which schools emotional and physical environments can be changed to make schools safer, advocating for legislation that protects LGBT students, speaking to future teachers, lobbying non-discrimination policy until we can accept the differences in one another. There will never be peace, and subjective experiences of trans people must be taken into consideration. Construction of a collective reason kills value to life. Ruben in 3. Since the idea of self-criticism can we discount the contrary experience of internal identity experience one source or another about identities that we can still trust. Inside times of suspicion, we must ask what it means that individuals feel a true self. Even if we accept that identities are fictionalized constructs of our collective imagination, we should be wary of attempts to dismiss experiences as false consciousness. Since transsexuals would regard as crazy or less than human, it is important to make their experiences a matter. And trans youth are uniquely ignored by social sciences. We should use debate as a tool to investigate the proper liberation status of trans youth. Also means you should prioritize them in your decision calculus. Malin and DiCrescenzo in 6. Many gender variant children are at great risk within their family structure system and within institutional structures. They're told that they are not fitted in a constant search and affirming environment where they can be themselves. Parents seek to find answers that the answers may seek to have parents may seeking to find answers may have their transgender child cured through punishment, physical violence, or endless mental health assessments. A trans frame perspective. Welcome, we're affirming literature on the topic of serious. No parents always know specification based on a high incidence of familial abuse, both verbal and physical. No parents do not have training or preparation for dealing with a transgender child. And part 2 is the plan text. The United States federal government ought to grant adolescents the right to make the autonomous medical choice to undergo hormone treatment without parental consent, as per the Affirmative doctrine. Part 3 is often the most important aspect of some image of the body. The ability to change one's physical image is key to reclaiming gender identity. Ruben, when you ask what the matter with someone who is asking in search of a diagnosis, if we ask what matters to someone who is asking for a taste of the wood, how it looks in the form, pathologizes the latter, and inquires, asked 22 FDMs what matters, and they told me their bodies matters as their bodies underwent adolescence and active treachery. The loss of their androgynous bodies. Participants experience extraordinary discomfort with their bodies. The long-term sort of link between bodies and identities to be recognizable. Again, bodies are crucial in identity formation, perception. More important than behaviors, style, and sexual preferences. The bodies become the main way of determining gender. Bodies facilitate introspective, subjective recognition of course of bodies matter. Subjects routinely misrecognized by others and whose bodies cause great discomfort. We must come to terms with the experience that the subject have of their bodies. Perhaps reports their perception of a course that is socially logically significant, and the impact of depression, anxiety, culminating in uniquely high suicide rates for transgender adolescents. But hormones solve. Carol in depression, anxiety, suicidality among trans people are commonly tied to an unmet need of gender confirming medical care, denying access to hormone represents their refusal to recognize humanity of trans people, infringes our personal autonomy, and as the constant discrimination they confront. Hormone treatment has been shown that alleviate depression, reducing suicide. Trans hormones facilitate gender self-determination, validating assertion of gender identities, preventing greater control over gender, constructive daily interactions, exerting control to provide agency, reducing helplessness and despair, and inability to control their gender drives trans youth to homelessness and illegal drugs which pose serious health threats. Malin and DiCrescenzo in 6. Realness is very important for trans youth. Realism about feeling real inside. Trans youth often feel the true gender identity is crucial to survival. Plus, parent refuse transgender gender transition. Some run away from home or seek to escape pain through reasons substance because of severe employment discrimination. Trans youth who are homeless work find work in the sex industries and all these youth are hired for HIV/AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases. Just treat or hardest hormone with medical supervision, complex marriage, lethal complications, hormonal sexual stomach can be done under an experienced endocrinologist. And without medical autonomy and foster care specifically, adolescents are lost in a system that causes unconscionable anguish and harm that lasts beyond adolescence. Turner in delaying gender affirming medical and foster care has devastating effects. Transgender youth may develop hate towards their genitalia and feel extreme desperation, language, physical and hormonal change, exacerbates mental anguish, making it more difficult to transition. As an debate of gender affirming medical treatment and social consequences, youth will continue to face harassment, discrimination, which may contribute to depression. Youth avoid developing romantic relationships until after transition because youth are feel repulsed by their organs. Avoidance puts youth behind their peers in emotional development, increasing negative feelings about their body club and become more isolated, delayed, managed advantage affects these transgender youth well to their future. Youth and foster care have deprived gender affirming treatment. Often choose to live in the street instead of foster care once on the street. These youth are often relegate themselves to sex work, increasing special HIV, rape, murder, incarceration, and poor for solvency. Mature amount of doctrine solves the problems in 4% self spills, resolves liability issues, their spill over varies at large. Carol, a non-trans youth may be able to overcome 4% loss to mature amount of doctrine. We wish to defend the mature amount of less than 18 years of age, determined by a physician, psychologist, or advanced practitioner to have a capacity to make mental health care decisions. Judicial involvement is not required. Instead of medical professionals for evaluation will immunize from liability of state ops, so the presumption in favor of allowing treatment. A professional could provide services with confidence. The judgment of minors concerning will be respected if stated opposite. A presumption opposing treatment uncertainty may lead practitioners to deny treatment to avoid liability. Fear liability may be one reason to facilitate about blanket prohibitions on access to hormones, recent legal uncertainty can encourage clinics to revise protocols of replacing blanket provisions with individualized assessments. The presumption favor along with wheat protein hormones under mature matter doctrine would reduce barriers to access and profiles impact calculations. Critical issues will be discussed to pragmatic approaches with an hegemonic power structures could pour in hybridizing strategies that laws into policies, institutional practice, and ideological apparatuses deconstructed with a feast dominant 30 face value explicit hegemonic trying to disavour hybridizing strategies post instabilities of power publicly shaming the hegemon, forcing the remedy justice to live in a stated manner in a more accountable manner. Hybridizing within the dominant, it works within the dominant discourse strategy. Out with the hegemon, we speak their language within their own ethical horizons. The ability common ground, the best kind easily dismantle across the playing game, grant you a certain legitimacy and you should privilege form structural bonds because an ethical need to keep it from being invisible. Actually, skip the next card. Even though the state does foster heteronormativity, it's not an inevitable analysis. The Supreme Court decision affirms possibility of self-reflection formed by the state as well as an affirmation including agonism that can challenge hegemonic sexual structures. De Lamy, and for legal decision-making office promise for establishing agonistic politics from rivers that have in trouble the heterosexual homosexual binary. Justice Kennedy makes two differentiations. First, he argues that lesbians are political groups deserving of protection. Second, there are no groups rights can be restricted based on animus from the majority. At the heart of the right is recognition that gays, lesbians, bisexuals are political groups not based on their minoritization, but the minority status imposed on them by the state. Kennedy argues disadvantages are established by states subject to political rights. The notion of equal protection gives minority subjects the basis for contestation in the political realm. It's possible to challenging majority by proffering the same rights political redress by all. The Supreme Court that the majority adhere to liberal democratic political principles regardless of their desire to reproduce the heteronormative structures. Their judicial spirit can establish the basis for career political identity, control heteronormative structures, while the state often institutionalizes unequal subjects. Agonistic decision making can be important research for career politics.
Alright.
Do not read Nixon and anything under it.
So I'm just gonna delete these things.
Yep.
So it was only that one card between. So you had two cards in the impact calendar.
Yeah.
Alright.
I did not read Nixon or anything other than under De Lamy.
So those are the only things in the doc you did not read, correct?
Yeah.
Alright. 3 minutes. Alright. So you claim that you. So what is the plan text? What is hormone treatment?
We defend all forms of hormone treatment.
Awesome. Then I guess so. Your article. So Carol conclude. Oh, okay, that's fine. In the solvency, what is the mature minor doctrine?
The mature minor doctrine. Well, we don't have to specify a specific doctrine.
I'm not asking you to specify a specific doctrine. I'm just asking you.
It is where a physician determines whether a patient, which they have to evaluate, is deemed to be capable of making decisions in a accountable manner. I can read you a specific definition. I mean, it just seems pretty simple that if the physician determines whether a minor is mature or not.
Alright, sounds good. Then I guess in terms of the offense, so you say that the most important aspect of the self-image is the body. Why necessarily does the ability to just undergo hormone treatment change that?
Sorry, could you?
Why do people have to alter their body to be consistent with their
Written evidence indicates that the main, so transgender people feel a perception of a core self, i.e. a self that is an identity that is distinct from their outside bodies. During puberty, the link between the core self and the outside body becomes severed as their androgynous bodies pre-puberty are taken away from them. So because of this, they also need affirmation of their own gender. And in order to reify that link, the aff is key.
Alright, I guess. Can you just explain to me, what is, the impact of the aff?
I don't know. What do you mean by impact?
What is it? Is it just trans oppression?
Yes.
Alright, why are trans people oppressed?
Why are trans people oppressed? I don't think it can be, one thing specifically. I'd say, probably heteronormative structures play a big role in it. Abusive or
so heteronormative
oppressive
structures pick.
I'll give you an example. Oppressive medical protocols like the HBIGDA standard is probably a good example. Requiring them to get parental consent is probably a good example. I don't know. There are a lot of reasons why transgender youth are oppressed.
Okay.
Employment discrimination is pretty big.
Okay, I guess that's fine. So, we still have more time, right? That's fine. We're killed. Alright, so you say that the role of the ballot is for the judge to fight heteronormativity.
Are we not starting, bro?
Oh no, we weren't. I thought his timer went off. So you say the role of the ballot is for the judge to what is the exact text of the role of the ballot?
I can read it out.
Sure.
The role of the ballot is to challenge the heteronormative structures that pervade society and provide a space for transgender adolescents.
Alright, that's fine. It's ready. Sending it over.
Yep.
Order? I'm pretty sure it's 4 off.
Ooh. Spicy.
It is 1, 2, 3, 4 off case.
tell me when you have it up, Srivatsav. You're good?
Sorry, would you say 3?
4 off. You're good? Autonomy is an illusion that the able body contracts do not face reality of disabilities, scapegoating of disabilities, physiology, and ontologically inferior invalidates disabilities and existential status cues, and symptoms of the community order keeps spread the vulnerability of beta is normative and vulnerable to the body, stable to modernity is invulnerable self as a fantasy associated with normalcy, non-stable to people to project the fear of the death, unstable to people to represent all these different aspects of human existence. The first is the physical reality, bodily difference, social vulnerabilities, the projection on the table to other social distancing, frozen into binary being the problem, the rest with the normative body, not body, remind its own vulnerability, stable to body, exposing the illusion of autonomy, all disabilities assume the ontologically intolerable, inherently negative, and understanding transgender differences a medical issue leads to legislative apathy, reinforces stable notion deviancy is dysfunctional, allows oppression against transgender people to continue and hinder that's Jagger and 13, the inclusion of medicalized opportunity, disease rather than just difference. The current DSM allows children who are generally atypical to be labeled as having a mental disorder, categorizing transgender people as mentally disordered leaves them to never legislatively trans people have been exempted from the Americans with disability acts in their medical, not covered by most insurance. She continues to legislate with use for the fact that transgender counts as mental disorder with clean trans people from identity-based legislation. Trans people are not protected in housing and employment at their murder site. Crime transgender Americans should be sick to protect not be sick to be fried to help. Mark the card at help and also clearly proven by the 1AC because of the fact that you can see that you defend the mature amount of doctrine and you say that the physician gets determined whether or not the transgender body is inherent. Takes out the entirety of the act because you can prove that the doctors are inherently negative against trans people, which means that if they get the choice to determine whether or not the trans people, their cisgender experience is always going to be flawed, which means a unconditional right to certain rights is going to be not beneficial, but also ableism is tactic oppression that permeates all forms of discrimination, categorization based on nor biological standards justifies every form of discrimination. Violence is not to say that the issue such as class or secondary, but rather any move which included deconstruction or able normativity of deceivers and not impression with focus on the body appears justified by the attribution natural inferiority to the potential biological inferiority disability serves as attributed to quantification of physical and mental properties of the body socially constructed disqualifying effects. The oppressor represented in some ways disabled. Race disqualifies the basis of race, sex, and the basis of sex and gender classes. The basis of the academic comparison of the inferior genealogical status ableism disqualifies on the basis of mental and physical difference representing signs of incompetence, weakness, or inferiority. Nature or alternatively should reject the affirmative approach to politics that favor dismodernism, identity politics, or inevitably shrouded wounded attachments to essentials only dismodern understanding of identity, solve social stigma that creates racism, sexism, classism, and ableism, any permutation co-opts dismodernism through revival of the white norm destructive that's Davis. And 13. Rather than ignore the unstable nature of disability, we should amplify that quality of stability, create dismodern just what characterizes limitation to the identity group of the possible exclusivity, disability, princess with the malady of the body, human identity, dismoder, error, restlessness. The difference is what we all have in common. The identity is not fixed, but is malleable, dependent on the proform, false dysfunction, reacting to the localization of identity. We need to consider a new ethics of the body, care with the body is now recommended with the existing consumer society. If we care about the body, we develop a dismoder as discourse. Mark the card of discourse. And Counterplan. Text. The United States federal government should subsidize hormone blockers and grant adolescents the unconditional right to autonomously decide to use them. This means that doctors can't run tests and determine whether or not they're able. Hormone blockers are effective GLT and 7 hormone blockers allow the child to fully transition to the opposite sex. Side effects are minimal, completely reversible, and cross-sex hormone treatment is net harmful. GLT and 7 cross-sex hormone treatment can result in infertility, high risk of cardiovascular disease, liver disease, diabetes, cancer, depression. The effects are reversible and can do permanent damage. A 12-year-old is not fully capable of understanding the impact for infertility, depression, or cancer may have on his or her adult life, and treatment can complicate gender identification. That's GLT, and that's GLT, and some treatment itself can be a patient's identity. Develop gender adolescent key time for brain development, a possible time for change of perceived gender to develop physically into biological sex to face violence. But the nature of therapy, other factors can be adjusted by increasing support and research of transgender children in the LGBT community. To clarify, the AFTA's the Counterplan specifically mandates that we do not allow cross-sex hormone treatment for adolescents. So it is mutually exclusive with the NC. So next off. Moral uncertainty means we should prevent extinction. Boston 12. Moral uncertainty seems to be presented axiology might be confused. We are uncertain there is value. Preserving ability to recognize violence here in the future, calling sharing the future of humanity's best way to increase future value. And no activation distinction for state censor opposed to approval of action still until moral responsibility sensi. Unlike individual becomes wise choice among regulating third parties, when authorized by action, not refusing act distinction between authorized and unauthorized actions becomes secure, but the government privately forbids action, but chooses at least discourage it. Thus standards maximizing risk. Next off. Budget deal between Boehner and Obama coming out will reverse sequestration says Tory 9 29 Republican leaders launch a budget talks with the White House talks give the Boehner last chance to deal with Obama. Boehner wants to get a broader deal, but before he departs at the end of October, Boehner did not rule out taking care of before the end of McConnell. Boehner spoke last week. McConnell said he hosted a secret deal with increased discretionary talks with the defense McCain and Bono specifically about brokering a deal and minor consent as controversial seen as attack on parental rights. Goodwin and June 11 the United States and the parental tracks every reproductive care remains contesting on diverse stakeholders opponents characterize them as challenges to whether parental authority limit the status meet the jurisdiction of the parenting way from the family looks about preventing promiscuous behavior and failure diversity sequestration cuts readiness kills deterrent capabilities makes miscal, and every conflict scenario more likely to shuffle. 9 14 bars of the government will near the breaking of the sequestration hold posts with great threats to the readiness of the U.S. force and the army. At a small size in the world, where too many sequestration hold the force would be reduced people to abandon the army defense many ministers in Africa, Iraq, Syria, posing a threat to the real cause of the readiness because when they're out of field, they're not training sequestration. And the concept of the readiness army chief, the Ojirino, expressed some of the concerns and the ability to have the military to conflict with the people. We not get big enough to return. They miscalculate. Harrison named to Russia and grave the political threats turns the key because in times where it's been super found to be how normatively empirically found. Look at World War II, in which the Holocaust, specifically persecuted of the homosexual or non-able body gender, which proves that time in times of war that a person is always going to be able to an area where the Earth would go to extinct, and that would be not worse, but also just had completely lead to the collapse of the healthcare system, which uniquely, but a big adults would also be able to treat themselves, but they would not. Case. The mature amount of doctrine cross-apply from the criticism that this is uniquely heteronormative because it allows the doctor who is always going to be, who's most likely going to be cisgender, to be able to determine whether or not the adolescent should be able to run tests, which means you're wanting to see is an affirmation of a policy that is uniquely heteronormative. Also, they force the trans people to internalize negative aesthetic judgments about their body that's always any benefit of access to by normalizing signifying the able gender, confirming individuals as conning, denied legitimacy based on the medicine is not the trans music alternative. The way of describing trans identity people not fit under the belt of the medical model. The medical model fails to describe the last person the trans community because many gender non-conforming individuals model the basis of all trans people desire medical treatment. Other trans people not understand the idea of diagnosis of the medical model. People, trans people hide the medical model fails to establish social authority. Trans people have pathology is stigmatizing. Mark the card stigmatizing. Turns the app medicalization, new normalization construction of hormone therapy makes it new barrier to access norm available to debilitation. The medical recommended are two sides of the same coin. Their app creates the social conditions. The problem they are trying to fix this is this card. The clinic program empirically proves my claim to be true. There is a warrant the doctors, even if though your app wants them to be able to do something, you mandate it, but that there is never going to be enforcement because doctors are never going to follow because they still have a choice, which means that even if they rule that trans adolescents do not have the right or they don't think they're competent because maybe they aren't heteronormative, they aren't heterosexual, and that would mean that your app doesn't force them to, your app does not mandate any form of whether or not, like, what does it mean to be mature. The doctors, that is left up to the doctor's interpretation. And, well, oh yeah, so I have a minute, yeah. I'll go to the interview. Conceptual inquiry is a prerequisite for constructive policy discussion. Only curriculum established can share meaningful political debate turns in always their policy make arguments quirky and a conceptual inquiry is bracket the empirical research without understanding the ways we apply the context and study we cannot justify. We risk not being able to understand how we and why our cancer not engage in constructive debate. The way we analyze the world to link to the sometimes we make philosophical investigation not be sidelined by embrace. And second, it's impossible to discuss policy options without considering the representation of the frame of the world. That's Jordan and six interpreted with the means decision maker sense of reality constrained and able to policy makers options can limit action or politically thinkable to making sure the policy is simply identify how state represents how I certain policy to be adopted while others have been in. Also, our rule of the ballot is that the affirmative should be, the policy implications of the app should be under a utilitarian calculus. That is better than your rule of the ballot because it is more inclusive and allows for discussion. You can still make framing arguments of why your arguments are more important, but it's not exclusive to your rule of the ballot. Also, you make arguments about why your role, like your oppression frameworks come first, but we've made arguments why the case outweighs because any worlds where everyone is extinct, that would be bad. And then on the underview, we are just a construction of policy, not a shift away from it.
Did you know that the budget deal passed?
I don't think it did.
It did. So how is it just added all in here?
I do not think the budget deal passed.
Your evidence is from 929.
Which is
over 2 weeks ago.
929 is.
I'm sorry, it's like 11 days ago.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
I don't
that's
think
fine.
it passed. I mean, I could be wrong about this, but
Okay.
if you read a card saying it passed,
Okay,
then
that's
perhaps.
Your link card Hughes, how does the app endorse autonomy as a concept?
It's not just wait. Are you talking about on the K?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Sure. So it's that autonomous consumption, autonomous conceptions are bad because it's always the word and construction of the word autonomy is always inaccessible to the disabled body because it creates a world in which the autonomous subject free from dependency is what is important. So the idea of autonomy is bad and constructs the normative body.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Sure. So the autonomous subject is one which is not dependent, which is the thesis claim of the app, that we need to strive away towards dependency.
How does the app?
Because you say that trans adolescents should be dependent and that they should not have dependency on the family or influence, but the criticism would argue that our conceptions of autonomy, at least. So there's a difference between freedom and liberation and autonomy. It is the way you get to your conclusion that's bad.
That's fine. What is the alternative?
The alternative is an embracement of dismodernism.
What is dismodernism?
Dismodernism is an understanding in which we break down social categories and endorse a model in which we stop using categories to. So, for example, empirically proven, right, we have legal rights for heterosexual couples to pass for hundreds of years, and then we grant rights to homosexual couples instead of having a universal system which says humans have X right, people
So
and
it's a
animals.
rejection of, like, identity politics?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Are policy options, or can adolescents get hormone treatment without consent to their parents in the world of the alternative?
Yes, it is an autonomous.
Yes.
Mhm.
How?
What do you mean?
How can adolescents get hormone treatment without consent of their parents?
In the world of the counterplan?
In the world of the alternative.
I'm sorry. I thought we were on the counterplan. Sorry, repeat the question. I don't want to...
Is it possible for adolescents to get hormone treatment in the world of the alternative?
It's not that they can get hormone treatment. It's that the alternative exists in a world in which those categories would never exist in the first place. No one would have to. Well, no, they could, right? They could if they really wanted to eventually. But the alternative has a different starting point. We do not start from the posited experience of trans and heterosexual and abled body, right? The idea of trans itself exists in a world in which someone who is trans is different from someone who is not.
That's fine. All right. Status the alt and the counterplan.
Both conditional.
Both conditional.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It took me. Alright, actually, I have like 10 seconds left. Alright. What are hormone blockers?
Hormone blockers? Sure. So hormone blockers are it's a form of treatment that enables people's secondary sex characteristics not to grow, so people have more time to be able to decide if they want to transition or not.
Okay.
Grant, why aren't you flowing? He's listening. That's what you want to see. Just go through the system here.
Good. Good. We actually cut blocks to that. So I can run that against that. We do a drill on that one.
I didn't know that about him. Instead of like creating a usable block file, you just like stay reading articles that respond to it.
Right.
So he knows why it's wrong.
Right, yeah. That's better than I guess nobody got me.
Hey, you should really put coaches poll. You only have to pick a top 10. So it's easier than a top 25. Yes, it takes like 2 seconds. Makes it more legit.
Appeal to my humanity.
Come on. You like football? It's like the same thing.
Except with children. I'm not.
It's all
I'm
on.
not opposed to it. I'm watching them.
I convinced Mr. Timmons to vote. Actually, just saying that took some doing.
Where does the person do it? You send an email or something?
Okay. I use 323.
I used this in an email and no one responded.
So you have. How much time do you have in that?
35.
35, okay. Are you sending it out?
Yeah. Sorry. I closed the email, so I just wrote it.
You're good.
If you
gonna go case, then the critique, case and the obstinate driven.
Case, critique, NC, NCA. Did I make a counterplan?
Case, critique, counterplan, NCDA.
Okay. Let me just open up the email.
I haven't sent it. I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I didn't press the send button. Sorry. Yep. Okay. Okay.
Extend male and Stafford in 14 that we should rule that we advocating for trans inclusive policies is key because it is key to empowering trans youth. The evidence is very specific. That says a way that schools can empower children is by advocating for the policies that include which the alternative fails because it rejects policy action. He's also communicated the core evidence in case that a hybridizing strategy is key, which means permutation to both is a vital component of the critique. The app is not at any politics in the case and critique is not mutually exclusive. If we work in this state, then we can use the master's words in order to course them. The alternative fails because it works. It does not have a pragmatic solution. He's conceded to see the political it is literally game over in the critique. If he wins the framing for the critique, then he will lose because I'm going to win that I am better for where the app is better for disabled people. Also, you can send the framing at the top of the case that extended movement of the subjective issue of the trans people must be taken into consideration. The dissat is an example of ivory tower purpose that ignores them. He's considered two reasons why trans people should come first in near distant calculus. The first is that subjective experiences must come into consideration. Otherwise, society will label them as dehumanized or less than human, which kills value to life, which outweighs your dissat because even if they will die in the world of the dissat, they have no value to life. They must have the ability to embrace life in the world of the app, which is conceded weighing analysis. The second reason that it comes first in your decision calculus is the amount of decrescent of evidence that you've uniquely been ignored by social sciences, which means it outweighs the dissat because it should play into your decision calculus because this kind of violence has been historically ignored. This is he will say make a bunch of new responses in the 200, but this has literally been conceded. Also, then you can send the Rubin 2 evidence that what trans people want is to have the app because they want to have gender self-determination to restore the link between bodies and their identities. This is a study of 20 where he interviewed a group of trans men and children, and they concluded after which takes out all of his case turns. Also, the case turns assume that we force them to identify in a certain way. No, we don't. We give them choice. That is the thesis of the affirmative. He also conceded the Carroll evidence that says that we should let physicians make the decision on whether the minor is mature or not whether they should have the ability to make the decision. The physician will not know whether the minor is trans or not. They will have no knowledge of the treatment. They will only know they will know the minor and be able to determine whether the minor is mature or not. It was not a treatment by treatment basis. And now go to that means you can send the Carroll evidence that resolves legal issues which spills over to solve barriers at large like blanket provisions on disabled people on treatment of disabled people. Go to the critique. One, the plan is a way of solving for the case, and two, we're still giving disabled bodies autonomy legally speaking. Even trans disabled people are the people who still benefit from the plan. Secondly, call for bodily autonomy distinct from the notion that they critique and central movements calling for the protection of sex minorities means the app is a prior question. Butler in theory, when we hear about rights, we understand them as individuals who argue as a group of community defined by sameness. Their language might establish legitimacy within a legal framework as constant liberal autonomy ontology. We can ask state keep laws off our bodies to be a body to be given over to others, even as the body is one's own, over which we must claim autonomy. This is true for trans self-determination. It's difficult to make these claims without recourse to bodily autonomy. They are parts of aspiration training movement that seeks the protection of racial and ethnic minorities and permutation to both. We're not focused on personal identity, but focused on pragmatic policy solutions to solve oppression. Means the often the alternative not mutually exclusive. Also, you alternative force that your alternative off is super duper contradictory. Marlowe, and for his stated reluctance to engage in identity politics complicated by his reliance on identity, he bases his claim of authority upon his status as a child or deaf adult. Davis notes that I still bear the hidden injuries of class. Also, there's more contradictions by making some representations come first in your author. Marlowe and Ford contextual representation sign language is the less natural to visualize and biological model of language. His biological model may contribute to the perception that many people with other disabilities are less than natural. Cut the card at natural. Go to the Counterplan. Permutation to the Counterplan does he have permutation to both the net benefits. One extent the Rubin evidence to trans root the routines are routinely misrecognized society to take into consideration what matters to them a change in their body gender conforming care is needed in order to validate transient's experience of their identity, which deviates from the norm. The Counterplan effectively tells them to wait until they're sure of their identity, which pathologises them further. Also means that Apple's Counterplan is worse version. Yes, your impact is not unique. Check your impact is not unique. Use to take hormones able to do at a later time, when they were 18, means that benefit outweighs the emotional development. The Turner evidence indicates that in the foster care system specifically, they don't get cross-sex hormones. They will not develop because they will not engage in things like romantic relationships. Go to the disad. The bill already passed through the House. Go and Google this. I don't need evidence on this because it's common sense, Jonas. Also, you can see the framing issues on the case, which means I'll still win the debate.
Alright, 4 minutes of prep, starting... Alright, actually, Bob, are you okay with me stopping prep for him to delete what he didn't read?
Yes.
No.
Okay, fine. Just delete what you didn't read.
Yes.
Just-
Would it be faster for you if I did it on my computer?
Yeah, do it on your computer and resend it.
I don't want to waste your power.
You're good. Thanks, man.
What'd you do?
You know, cause some trouble.
Such a troublemaker, Louise.
Did you send it yet?
I did send it.
Oh, okay.
The analytics at the top are not like I
That's
didn't
fine.
make them like I just it's like an outline.
Did you delete the counterplan answers you didn't read?
Yeah. I just want to look at it to make sure I didn't like add things I didn't.
You read all of them.
Those stupid things, yes.
Okay, that's fine.
And the first thing.
Okay, that's fine.
How do we end the camera out?
There's two of these. I read the top one. I read a lot of stuff.
That's fine.
Thanks.
It doesn't show file anymore.
Right here.
What are the contradictions?
The contradictions are your alternative author claims that identity politics is bad, and then he justifies his alternative, postmodernism, through appealing to his status as a child of deaf adults, which is clearly an example of using his identity as leverage. The second reason,
Appealing to his status is what?
as a child of deaf adults, and also he goes on to say that he's a child of working class deaf adults, that even though he has been in a society of privilege, he still bears the burdens of being of working class ideologies. I think that's the exact phrase he uses.
Okay.
Do you want a second card as well?
Did you read all of the card that you have on here?
I believe the part I didn't read.
Alright, that's fine. Oh, the order is okay. Yeah, okay. Actually, I'll think about this. Alright. The order. Tiny overview. Then we'll go the order of the 1C. Or actually, we'll go on the order of the 2AC. So that would be case.
1AR.
Oh, sorry, 1AR. Should be a 2AC. So case, critique, counterplan, and C dissect. All right. Everyone ready? Okay.
Very easy round. You're mishandling the case turns on case, but even so, I think it's going to be really easy to vote on the pick because no reason for why picks are bad or why they are a voting issue, but also the pick literally tells the entirety of the app. Also, you have conceded the net benefit, which means that it's going to be very easy to vote on the counterplan, but also I think you're severely mishandling. So yeah, that's fine. First, on case. And I think I can still win the K. That's fine. Start on the case. Extend the conceded analytic, which was that the mature minor doctrine enables physicians to be able to determine whether or not unless you say it's whether or not they are mature, but I don't think you've read a card on this issue about whether or not they know they are trans. I think it's very specific about how a doctor who is going to give trans treatment to a patient or not determines whether or not they think they are mature enough for the treatment itself, because for example there are multiple different decisions inside the medical field and whether or not they think the adolescent is mature enough to make that decision. So I think that you are making this argument up, and I think you're on the wrong side of the situation, which means that the physician still has the ability to make the decision wrong, which means you are an affirmation of a trans policy, but you've considered the coming evidence that you force trans people to internalize negative aesthetic judgments about their body, ways and net benefit access search by normalizing signify the able gender stable body, because the argument is that you start from the position of what it means to a trans body, because you assume from the starting position that transgender people and people who are not trans are different, which would mean that people feel forced to be able to trans to other people when they should not have to do that. With me, the affirmation of the medical model is not being, you've considered this turns the optics medicalization as a new normalization, because you construct a hormone therapy, because you construct that the body that is not the body, like for example someone who has breasts and identifies as a man feels like they are not a man because of their physical characteristics. Your AF is a continuation of that policy because they feel the need to conform. Send the Smith evidence that their politics categorizes trans identity by separating the true trans people from the ones with less severe problems. That is also they making the same claim at the same word about how you're always going to be disadvantageous for that route. Both these arguments are conceded. You try to extend argument. You say you take out the turns because trans people want the affirmative, but that is different. That is exactly the point. They want the affirmative because they feel pressured to do so, which means that instead that proves an alt stallment to your argument. So go on to the critique. First, on your answers, you say that autonomy is an illusion of the okay, yeah. You say that autonomy is an illusion. You say that autonomy is an illusion that the able body faces, not face the reality. Actually, the critique was conditional. Kick it. We're not going for it. On the counterplan. Extend the counterplan text that the United States federal government should subsidize hormone blockers and grant adolescents the right to autonomy to decide to use them. I clarified that this AF mandates that we do not do cross-sex hormone treatment. But guess what? Game over. You've conceded the net. But first of all, extend the GLT evidence that hormone blockers are effective, and that hormone blockers allow the child to fully transition to the opposite sex, and that it literally does the entirety of the affirmative. Adolescents are still allowed to transition to the opposite sex. No reason why uniquely in adolescents is key, because you conceded the next piece of GLT evidence, which is that cross-sex hormone treatment is net harmful. You have no defense about how cross-sex hormone treatment can result in infertility and high rates of cardiovascular disease, liver disease, diabetes, cancer, depression. Effects are irreversible and can do permanent damage. A 12-year-old is not fully capable of understanding the impact of infertility, depression, and cancer. You may have as a adult. Well, this is a concession of how adults are not going to be fully capable of understanding these impacts, and when they become adults, that's going to be fun. But also extend the last piece of GLT-7, which is damning, is that treatment can complicate gender identification, because treatment inserts itself into the patient's identity states. Adolescence is a key time because hormones of the opposite gender at a young age is always going to be affecting the body. Now, that means that it makes it hard, because then it hurts because for support for LGBT community, because then it means that adolescents are having these different hormones blocked into the body. It's not necessarily their choice anymore, because not every single adolescent actually ends up transitioning, which means that because what happens is hormone blockers give them a delay. Exactly. This is my affirmative. What it does is it gives them hormone blockers to prevent the development of sex characteristics, which solves for the bullying of the affirmative, because what happens is that they no longer get bullied, because what happens is that they have the ability, for example, things like breast they refuse to develop. There was an amazing BuzzFeed article I read about a girl who read about a male who over the course of 3 years took hormone blockers, and then that did not change her, but it enabled her female characteristics to not develop, and then she was not bullied, which means it solves the entirety of the app. It does not have the harmful effects that they just had. Go to your answers. First, you say affirm to the counterplan. This is severance. Cross-examination is binding. You said that you defend all forms of hormone treatment, which means that I read a dissad to cross-sex hormone treatment, which you did not respond to, which means that is a net benefit to the counterplan, because we do not do cross-sex hormone treatment, which is 2 minutes. Okay. So you say, does the app change the function of the fiat, not mandates to the plan? But yes, CX is super binding. Don't let him be sketchy on this. I asked you, what is hormone treatment? You say, you defend all forms of hormone treatment. Cross-sex hormone treatment is a form of hormone treatment. You defend it. It's a pick. Don't let him be shifty on this issue. Hormone to the counterplan is not sufficient. You say the app does not specify which forms of hormone treatment. Come on, dude. I asked you in CX. You say benefits where you say that Ruben benefits about transfuse are really characterized as value. In fact, you've conceded that counterplan solves the entirety of the app means that it's going to be sufficient. But also, you say confirming care is gender confirming care is necessary in order to validate GTs, but not even they can be able to do this when it's 18. It's just that it also delays it and gives them the choice, but also the fact you've conceded that every single adolescent is 100% sure what their choice means, that it delays the choice, which means they don't develop characteristics, which means they don't look like the gender that they want to look like, which means they still look like neutral enough for them to be able to make the decision later in life, which solves, but also it's completely reversible, which means that mistakes don't happen, and then people commit suicide because they made the wrong, because they don't actually think who just do not actually want to conform to that, who don't actually want to conform to that gender is bad, but also the critical implications of how not having to feel the need to conform with the other gender to be part of the normative subject is another net benefit to the counterplan, right? Because we say that they can look like nothing, like they don't have to look like a gender. The normative but subject should be considered never as one. But also, your second argument is that your impacts are not unique. Youth will still take hormones, but also you have my evidence call for it. It's very specific to adolescents taking hormone treatment. It's harmful. We advocate them doing it after 18 when they become adults, which means it's not uniquely an adolescent, but also still the impacts. It's worse for them to happen earlier because an adolescent doesn't understand the implications of the harms at least an adult does, which is still net benefit. You say emotional development. Trans youth tend not to participate in romantic relationships and remain in isolation to the results mob. But this is not a reason why hormone block. You say puberty block is only prevent development of secondary sex characteristics, but post-adolescence too late. You say the impacts of the offer triggered, but no, that is not, because if they don't develop sex characteristics and they don't look like the opposite gender, they can still claim to be the other gender. It's just forcing them the need to conform to the other gender. And also, they're not harmful, which means that they still don't solve. So the round's very simple. Case conditional, we're not going for it. Extended case turns, you might solve, but there's still a net benefit to the counterplan. We solve the entirety of the app. We'll concede that oppression comes first.
35. It takes a while to find the speech. Well, maybe like some tape on your computer. After you've been judging public form as long as you have.
Okay. Or is going to be case counterplan.
Maybe what?
Case, then counterplan.
Okay.
Jonas concedes through two speeches the Rubin evidence that says that what matters most is subjective experiences of trans people. They must come first in your decision making. That is evidence that says that historically their voices have been ignored by people who label them to be influenced by outside influences and not able to make their own decisions. I.e., the evidence that you read that say that all their feelings are construction. They don't actually want to transition. Or where the case turn was is an example of society telling them that it is not actually a perception of their core self, but rather an influence from outside sources. Which means that the way that you should evaluate this round is whoever facilitates the subjective experiences of trans people and allows them to realize that is the person who should win the round. At which point you can send the Rubin 2 evidence that the body is the most important object for trans people. This is an actual study a study of trans men and boys who said that what mattered most to them is their bodies. It does not matter what any other argument is around. It matters what they said. This has been conceded that GSPDC makes two case arguments. The first is that the affirmative is a medical system, the affirmative is a medical model in which the people who do not conform the same way are excluded. No, we do not. He conceded an explicit response to this that says that the F does not force people to have the treatment. It gives them a very, very explicit choice, which gives them bodily autonomy. That is the Butler evidence right on the critique. We endorse the idea of autonomy as a bodily system in which they can make their choice. If they do not want gender treatment, they do not feel gender dysphoria, they do not have to have it. Also, the mature minor doctrine is nonsensical. The Carroll evidence, if I give an example in West Virginia where a mature minor is a person less than 18 years of age, a person less than 18 years who deemed to be able to make the proper medical decision. There's no indication that it is only trans people. It is anybody. A mature minor can be anybody. The doctors do not have make it in the context of a trans person. They make it in the context of a person. There is no indication that doctors would be biased if they to people in general, only towards trans people, which means if that is not part of their distinct calculus, that is not an argument anymore, which means that I will read an overview to the counterplan right here. The counterplan may have other net benefits, but the case definitely outweighs. If I win that we facilitate gender self-determination better, there's a reason to vote F. I do not read the first permutation, so all his answers do not matter. I told him that in cross-text. I'm not just being shifty, which means that you can extend the solvency arguments that I made. You can extend the Rubin evidence of the trans season routinely recognize we need a change in their body gender confirming care is needed in order to validate trans teens' expression of identity, which deviates from the norm. And your impacts are not unique. The youth will still take the hormones. My evidence is very, very specific. It says that your evidence is specific. It says that the medical effects of the treatment are bad. It's not specific to adolescents. It says that it causes things like diabetes. That it's obviously not specific to adolescents. The most damning extension is the extension of the turn evidence that is emotional development. That trans youth tend not to participate in romantic relationships, etc. They remain in isolation due to their resentment of primary sexual organs. It is not how they look to other people. It is how they look to themselves. I.e., they do not like. They think that they develop hate towards their primary sex genitalia. That is the very explicitly turn evidence. Even if the puberty blocker counterplan can solve secondary sex characteristics, if they cannot solve primary sex characteristics, that is the reason why you should affirm, because the app allows transgender youth to identify better and develop emotional relationships, like romantic relationships, which means here's how you evaluate the round. The framing is that whoever facilitates gender self-determination better should win. Obviously, the counterplan does not do that because it tells them they should wait, and they should wait until where they're sure. Good round.
is how I know that people are reading Edelman this tournament.
What now? True.
Already's RFD is how I know that people are reading Edelman at this tournament.
Apparently on the aft.
Yeah.
So we read a bunch of cards that said, nope, that's an egg argument. We read a bunch of cards that were supposed to be answers, like Edelman bad because too pessimistic, but we just said, that's good.
Dude, Edelman, the best argument against Edelman is that he's have sites for that?
Yeah, I do.
If you wouldn't mind sending me, that'd be awesome.
I think I do. Just not sure where they are. Let me find them.
Okay, so 2-0 for the neg. Really good debate, guys. This is one of the better debates I watched on the topic, and I think a really good way to engage these types of apps, of which I think there are not many ways to engage. I think that that the Counterplan solves a majority of case and has some good net benefits. One of which being that it avoids this normative subject DA, that the AF creates a feeling that they have to conform to one set of gender rules, which is bad. We should affirm ways of hormone treatment that allow them to not conform to normative gender roles. I think that the AF probably would solve some of this because you allow for all different types of hormone treatments, but that's not an argument made by the 2AR. And then the extension of the Koenig stuff on case with the medical model kind of impacts this. And, well, there's also another link to this argument that if the AF endorses a medical conception of trans, that that will lead to more normalization of these gender roles and leads to a kind of stigmatization of people who don't fit those roles, which is an exclusion that he explicitly says turns the case or outweighs the case. And I don't have a really great 2AR response. You respond to the MMD enables physicians to determine argument, and I think I can grant you that he doesn't get a link to that DA, but I think these arguments are separate. I also think he probably does win this argument that that the treatment decisions are tied up, that it's not like a 1-2 step process. He says that physicians will find a way to find out what kind of treatment they're making. I think both sides could do better on this part of the debate. I mean, they're both kind of assertions. I'm kind of agreeing with the neg, but I'm not so sure, so I don't end up voting on that particular net benefit.
On what specifically, Bob? Which one?
The MMD allows physicians to determine whether they get this specific treatment. You need a card that says it's a case-by-case basis. They don't decide separate from the treatment decision. They decide for a specific treatment. So you should get a card. I've seen them in the context of abortion, where they're like judges are the ones who decide for the specific treatment. So like abortion is something that's so big that they change the standards of what it means to be mature, but I have not seen it in the context of this app. It probably exists though. So two arguments that I look from the AF and consider are one, the Rubin extension, and I think the extrapolation on this is a little bit new. So I mean, it's in the 1AR as part of the framing, but it's really labeled to answer the disad, not to answer the counterplan impacts. So I end up I look at the evidence to see if it really says, because I don't think that 2NR had a fair shot to respond to your explanation. I think your explanation is good, but I think this evidence actually helps the neg a good bit, because the card says that what matters more than kind of the social, let me get the specific line. What matters is the link between bodies and identities. As their bodies underwent adolescence, they lost their androgynous bodies. They experienced discomfort because of this. And I think the counterplan specifically solves for that because it allows them to not lose their androgynous pre-pubescent bodies. And then the second part of this says that bodies are more important than behavioral styles and sexual preferences, which I take to answer your other argument that there's this kind of romantic relationship, emotional development DA to the counterplan that your own Rubin answers pretty well. It says that doesn't matter as much to them. So that's not an application that's made by the neg, but your entire 2AR framing is like must be consistent with this Rubin evidence. So I'm like, okay, what matters is the bodies, and I think that counterplan does that pretty well. Another argument that 2AR makes is that you can solve for secondary sex characteristics but not primary, but I don't know why the AF solves for primary sex characteristics. Like the AF is about hormone treatment, and you say then they can later undergo the larger kind of sex change operations, that sort of thing, and that the counterplan also agrees with. It says delay until they're 18 and then they can make those types of decisions. So I don't really think that's unique offense for the AF. I also don't think it's anything extended in the 1AR to answer this counterplan. I don't have that in the 1AR. So I ultimately think the counterplan solves the entirety of the case. There's no disad to it, and there is a good risk of this medicalization, normalization type net benefit.
I agree substantially with Bob. I think that the MMD argument does pretty substantially undermine the solvency of the AF. Like the idea that doctors aren't going to know like whether or not their patients are trans or whatever is just not true. Like that physically needed the doctors. The mature minor doctrine is a legal doctrine, right? If a minor wants to acquire treatment and their parents don't let them, they sue, right? They go to court and the judge says they're mature enough to make the decision. Presumptively, they already have a doctor that's willing to consent to that. But the argument that you can't force doctors to treat patients is true, right? Like that. So if doctors are homophobic, there's not much solvency for the aff. So in that context, then even if the argument from Rubin is true that like gender confirming treatment is critical, you have relatively little solvency on that argument compared to the net benefits to the counterplan, which are both like these medicalization arguments, normalization of binary gender or whatever. I don't know that the counterplan, like that there's a ton, like Bob is saying, that there's a ton of like uniqueness for those net benefits, but I think that they're there, and then also just there are really deleterious health consequences. I think that you should be doing some time framing, Jonas, just saying that like even if gender confirming treatment is super duper important, like there are these these obvious negative health consequences in the near term, and the only implication of the counterplan is that they've got to wait a couple years, which is bad under Rubin. But if there's minimal solvency for Rubin's impacts, right, like it seems like the counterplan can outrun that basis as well.
Yeah, well, I also think those net benefits need to be framed in terms of Rubin. I mean, I'm looking at the framing of the 2AR, I thought it was very smart to really start on this, like, you have not talked about the app evidence, this is what my framework is, and in a different world as possible, you know, I'm kind of going along with this framing, like, oh yeah, like, you didn't really impact any of your net benefits to what the app cares about. You assume a kind of like general, you know, trans oppression is bad, util type impacts are bad, but just do more to link into the app specific ev. Stuff like, you know, is bullying an instance of trans oppression? Does it matter as much as like the medical stuff? That's weighing that's not done. What about, you know, the suicides? That seems bad. Cancer? I don't know. I mean, does it matter according to the app? That's a question that's not really answered in this debate.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I know in the 2AR, so do you think it was possible for me in the 2AR to make an argument about how like the counterplan would not resolve like the app takes a spillover argument in the 1AR, but did not apply to the counterplan as like a solvency deficit? Do you think the 2AR still could have gone for it? Like the extension of
Which spillover
the
argument?
Carroll evidence, I extended it out of the app in the 1AR, but it was extended as just like solvency, not compared to the counterplan. It was like plan solved and spills over. Because the counterplan is mature matter doctrine.
I don't really have it extended that way in the 1AR, but the bigger thing is that you should just be phrasing your 1AR extensions in terms of comparing the app to the counterplan and the alternative, which you do a decent bit of, not really enough. Same for Jonas extending your case arguments. You really want to explain on case when you're extending one of these case terms why it's something the alternative or the counterplan would solve, rather than just something in the abstract that we should consider.
Sure.
So do you think then like a good argument to make in the counterplan would have been the spillover arguments?
I think it's fine. I mean, I think you really have to prove, you know, what Adam said, which is that, what is it, hormone or sex affirming, gender affirming, is better than just gender block. I don't know the terms. We don't read this app, but I think you just have to win that solvency debate that this is a uniquely key solvency mechanism. I mean, that's all it is.
You solve uniquely well for it, right? Like, presumptively, the framework says that it's important, but that you would actually solve the problem. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why the app would access this spillover any less than or more than the counterplan would.
Like, because the counterplan says mature matter doctrine.
Oh, the Carroll evidence is specific to mature minor doctrine spilling over?
I need to. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand what it means to like extend the mature minor doctrine. Like, the mature minor doctrine exists to like assess the ability of adolescents to make medical decisions. Like, changing the presumption gets rid of the need for the mature minor doctrine. It's confusing to me what it means to extend the mature minor doctrine. Like, it already extends to all adolescents.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to read this Carroll evidence more carefully, given that it wasn't really a part of the debate. I didn't look at it. Looking at it now, I agree. I mean, I don't know if this is the right mechanism at all. If that card is really good, then maybe you just need to, you know, that needs to be a bigger part of the debate.
I mean, conceptually, I think the strategy question you're asking is right. If I can solve the app better, won't that? Or if I can, you know, win more on solvency, won't
I'm
that?
asking about like specific arguments I should make.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Here.